Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I am really excited to have Sam Kolbert-Hyle with me today. Sam is the president and CEO of Brandlive, a kick-ass company here in Portland. And Sam, welcome to the show, man.
Good to be here.
So for those that may not know about you, Sam, or Brandlive and what it is you guys do, walk us a little bit down, not too much of a rabbit hole, but walk us down a little bit who you are and how you became the CEO and president of Brandlive, and then we'll talk about all the future of work stuff that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I grew up in Philadelphia. I'm a Philly guy.
Okay.
In my heart. And I never thought I'd be in Portland, Oregon. I never thought I would find my way, honestly, to the West Coast. After college, I was recruited. I went to Wharton undergrad, and all my friends were going to New York, and I was interviewing for a variety of jobs at the time. There was this guy in sunny California at a private equity firm called Kane Anderson. And this is 2007. I didn't even know the difference between private equity and investment banking, et cetera. Anyway, long story short is he was trying to hire kids out of Wharton where he went instead of 26, 27-year-olds from investment banking as a kind of test or trial.
Yeah.
And I interviewed for the job, and I was decently entrepreneurial had a business in college. We sold T-shirts. And anyway, long story short is I decided to take this job in LA. I never thought I would go to LA. My parents were very upset, to say the least.
Yeah. They wanted you to go to New York and do the IB situation?
Well, I went to college in the same city I grew up in. I have two moms, so my moms are Kitty and Joanne.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would go to school at Penn, but I decided I wanted to do business.
Yeah.
Kind of a crazy story. My mom decided to send me to New York for an aptitude test. I don't know why. She'd read something in the New Yorker about this. And she sent me to New York by myself. And I was
How old are you?
I was a junior in high school. Okay. So I was 17, maybe 16.
Yeah.
I ended up getting a fake ID on this trip. It was that seminal in my youth story. Long story short, they said you should be in business. You should be an entrepreneur. And so once that kind of like became the choice for me, going to Penn, where the business school was the number one school in the country, was like an easy thing. But it meant that I was staying 30 minutes from my house, which I never intended. Mm-hmm. Anyway, long story short, I spent 4 years in Philly, close to my parents, and so going to Los Angeles, 3,000 miles away, was a big thing.
Yeah.
So I took this job in LA. We were investing in software companies. At the time, software service didn't exist. We were focused on companies that had a couple $1 million in EBITDA, mostly perpetual licenses. No one really understood this notion of recurring revenue, what it meant.
Yeah.
We didn't even call it SaaS. It was called ASP software.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And the idea of running the business break even or losing money was scary in this period. My first day of work at Kane Anderson, I got put on the deal that was being worked on for a little company with a funny name called Smarsh. And I was 21, and Steve was young. I mean, he's 10 years older than me. He's 31. So youngest CEO in the portfolio, smallest company in the portfolio. And so older guys decided to put the young guy on it, and were kind of laughing at me.
Who's laughing now?
They weren't laughing pretty soon. Took a couple of years, but I mean, we had a mandate of a couple $1 million in EBITDA, $3 million of EBITDA, and the Smarsh business wasn't even $3 million in revenue. So it was by far an anomaly in the portfolio. Yeah. And I worked with Steve for 2.5 years at Kane Anderson, and then in 2009, we decided it made sense for me to come work directly for him. And I moved to Portland thinking I'd be here for a couple of years, no more than maybe 3. We were 3 years into a 5-year investment.
Yeah.
So
you're about to exit.
That was the thinking at the time.
Yeah.
The business, of course, had done pretty well during that period, pretty significant year-over-year growth.
Yeah.
And so the thinking was, I don't know, come here for a couple of years, head back to LA or San Francisco or New York. This was a stop.
A long stop.
Yeah, it's been 12 years.
Damn.
But the Smarsh business, of course, has done incredibly well. Yeah. We had a handful of transactions over the year that meant that we were, continuing to run the business.
Right.
And then in 2018, Steve and I left together at the same time to build his family office, which is called Archivist Capital. Yeah. And started making angel investments, getting more involved in a earlier stage set of investing. And in that period, we had kind of stumbled across a larger thesis around helping find a company that had, I don't know, anywhere between 3 and 10 million of revenue that we could bring product knowledge, sales expertise, buy the business and turn it into something else.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a great idea that potentially hit some sort of sticking point with either the people or with some sort of kind of stuck moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we never thought Brandlive would be the business. I never expected Brandlive to be the one that we would kind of engage on this thesis with. And it just so happened that at the end of the summer in 2019, we, the board of Brandlive kind of asked me to help them think about who the next CEO would be.
Yeah.
And the honest truth is,
you guys already an investor in it at that point?
We had a board seat. We invested in the business
so
in 2016. Yeah. And so I was kind of like, oh, okay, let's think about this, figure this out. I didn't know that much about the business. And mind you, I was attending the board meetings, so I should have known a lot about the business. And I think it's a good example of, sometimes you don't know what you have until you kind of dig a little deeper. And it was during this period that I asked for access to the admin panel and started to dig into the product and started to realize that the way it was being used by customers was very different than what was on the website or how the management team was thinking about it. The original Brandlive business was started very much focused on QVC for your brand. It was actually called Your Brandlive. So the idea was stand behind a podium, talk about this shoe, wax philosophically about the patent leather, the stitching, and sell largely to a direct-to-consumer audience a product. The use cases that I think were very front and center to the narrative were product launches, product education, things of that nature.
Yeah.
When I started to dig into the product, I realized that many of the use cases were around training large teams, all hands meetings, and I started to think, that's really interesting. I had planned the all hands meetings at Smarsh for 10 years or had been on them communicating for a very long time. I knew how painful they were. I knew how challenging that was.
Oh, shit, another one.
Yeah, exactly. And this is real. Most companies have that meeting quarterly. Not because people don't want to hear from leadership or the CEO that frequently, but just they're so hard to plan that you just push them out.
Right.
And so we basically bought the company in 2019. The transaction closed over this December 31st and January 31st period. It's a long story. I won't get into it.
No. But December 31st of 19 and early 2020.
Yeah, January 31st, 2020, I took over as CEO with the idea that we would potentially abandon the Brandlive brand and focus the business on this new idea of reinventing the all hands meeting.
And then COVID hit.
We sent everybody home mid-March, whenever the NBA canceled the season, maybe that next Monday. It's like, okay, this is it. I went to Hood River, and during this period, I had real doubts whether this idea, this thesis of running the business in stealth, coming up with this new idea, we'd have enough capital to sustain it, because the original Brandlive business required you to go on site to film the talent, because that's where CEO was, that's where the leadership was.
Right.
Honestly, that's kind of what's going to happen moving forward. You're going to film on site in a kind of theatrical stage environment, and then you're going to broadcast to your employees or to your customers, to your partners globally. So we're kind of returning to where we were.
Yeah.
But at the time, those meetings or events were getting canceled because people weren't on site.
Doing anything. Yeah.
We were down to, I think, $72,000 on the balance sheet. I mean, it was really dire. As you remember, people didn't know when it was going to end. Initially, it was April 1st, then it was April 15th, then it was May 1st, then it was May 31st.
Right.
And right around this period, I'd say mid-May, that's when we started to realize, this great technology that we have, which was designed for on-site film broadcast remotely, could be used in a pure remote. At the time we called it a triple play, where you had a production person, either our people or company, remotely. You had cast or the talent remotely from their houses, and then the audience was remote. We pivoted immediately. That's
a massive pivot.
I mean, it was we happened to have the technology, so it wasn't that huge of a leap of faith, but we got introduced to a variety of I would say probably Herbalife and then the Biden campaign was in this kind of mid-May period.
Yeah.
Where we suddenly became, a resource for people to figure out how to do this.
Right.
The business started to explode. We thought we would do $100,000 of business in a month, and we're doing it in a day. It became that crazy.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, we went from 8 people to probably, I don't know, maybe 60 or 70 by the end of the year, and the acceleration was
at the end of 2020. You were at 60 people.
Yeah, about 60. Yeah, 65, somewhere in there.
Holy
cow. So
at the end of 2020, you guys just skyrocket pretty much.
Yeah.
And then what happened? So then, obviously the Biden campaign happens, that goes through. Then are you guys getting like calls left and right at that point too? Like early 2021, and it's just like
all inbound. Everything was inbound. Yeah. I would say that 95% of the business was inbound and word of mouth at that point. And COVID was a huge tailwind for us initially. And I always, just as a way to kind of pivot into how we kind of shifted a bit in 2021, we started to kind of realize that a lot of these experiences that we were hosting weren't that great. And for anyone who's been on a virtual event, this, right? You know this in your heart.
They suck.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would maybe use
your
softer
guys
language.
may not. Okay, well, they're okay. Okay, they're okay.
I think it's okay to say that during that period, there was a real question about whether they
what do you do?
Yeah. And the reason why we figured it out, we think, is because we put together a list of all of the best experiences on Brandlive in this period, this kind of end of 2020, beginning of 2021 period. And I remember this is just like a vivid memory for me. I put together a list of 50, and we didn't really know how to figure this out because people weren't really responding to surveys, and so you couldn't really couldn't really get it from the people, so to speak. And so what we did is we basically asked the customers and asked our employees what were the best events, and we got this list, and it was like 40 long. It's like, and I started just clicking through, just like event after event, and we started to realize, wow, a lot of these events are really ugly. The pages don't look very nice. The language on the page isn't particularly interesting. They're not using the full feature set. And we started to realize that the quality of the experience had nothing really to do with the things around the video player, our software. Yeah. But rather, did it tell a story? Did it move people? Did it make you feel something? Did the hair on your arm stand up? Did the butterflies stir in your stomach? Did it actually make you remember it or want to watch it again?
Did it give some emotion to what, did it feel? Yeah.
Did it match the style of video content you watch in your personal life?
Right.
Like, did it actually like move you to tears?
Yeah.
Did it make you want to donate or whatever the cause was?
Right.
Did it have a purpose? And that storytelling was really clear when you click through, because you could see, they'd invested in high quality video content. Right. It had some structure to it.
Right.
It looked not like another boring WebEx, and it had energy that made you feel something.
Yeah. So where are you now?
The reality is we are 100% focused on helping companies navigate this return to office future of work thing. And hybrid work's hard. It's not as easy as people think.
Yeah.
People are just returning to the office this quarter, right? So they're just going to figure this out for the first time. When you work from home, there's a ton of benefits. You can, shimmy down the stairs and go to your office. You can shower on a different schedule.
Yeah.
You can get your coffee at a different schedule. When you have to come to the office, of course, you have to shower before you leave the house. You have to drop your kids off at school. You have to stop and get coffee at Starbucks. You have to ride the elevator. You have to parallel park.
Yeah.
You have to find a desk. You have to make sure you bring the right charger and components to make sure your phone charges and your computer charges.
Right. Yeah.
You can't be on a Zoom call in the same space as someone else who's on that call. So you have to find different spaces. Mm-hmm. So there's this kind of exploration that's happening. Right. And it will continue to happen over the next quarter, where people are going to have to figure out how to work in an era that was great for a lot of people. Yeah. There's a ton of stats on this, and it's just really interesting to kind of dig in. Leaders, executives did better in an in-office environment. And so on average, they prefer us. Why you have a lot of people say, we got to go back to the office.
Right.
Because that's the environment they got ahead in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's really, yeah. I didn't think about that point, by the way.
The opposite is also true, that women and people of color, on average, have done better working from home. People who have children and people who maybe didn't do as well in a more political environment did better working from home. We have started to kind of dig into this and study this. It is going to unfold over the next 2 quarters, but I am 110% confident that we're not in Kansas anymore. This is not 2019. We're not going back to a world where people are in the office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Flexibility at work is going to be the number one thing driving executives and how they think over the next year.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be on days of the week. People want to work at a place that shares their values, where they have purpose, where they feel connected to the people they work with.
Right.
For a variety of reasons, they don't want to be told to be in an office. So we're trying to figure this out, and our entire business is focused on how we help companies communicate in an era that's going to be harder to communicate live. So it's all about asynchronous video. It's all about making content so good that you want to watch it after the fact.
The thinking is you work with all these sort of brands to help sort of internal, I don't call it internal communication, but internal or external to make
high impact meetings and events. And it could be a huge customer conference, like Dreamforce, but it also could be a much smaller, more intimate pitch meeting. It could be a webinar. Any meeting that you want people to remember, any meeting that you want to look less like a WebEx meeting and more like something that you'd see on television.
Yeah.
Take an all hands meeting. You might have an intro video play as you let people shuffle in. Most people join a meeting, by the way, about 3 to 4 minutes late. So you never really want to start your content.
Be prompt, people.
Yeah.
Jeez.
This is. I stopped expecting it to be any different. The data was so pronounced. Minute 4 is when it crosses over into like 70-80%.
Yeah.
Like it takes a full minute, 4 minutes, which happens to be nicely
the average
length of a song.
That's why you set the meeting at 12:55 for 1 o'clock. You know.
Yeah. I think. Honestly, it gives you the way I'm imagining the world. We have to trust our people, and we have to give them the flexibility to work when it works best for them.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't care if they show up on time, because it's okay if they watch it later today. It's okay if they watch it when they put the kids to bed. It's okay if they watch it tomorrow. And if that's going to be your point of view, that you want to give people flexibility as a leader, what do you have to do? You have to make it good. Because no one wants to rewatch a WebEx meeting.
Right.
We're really excited about the future. It's all about helping companies with how they communicate in this kind of hybrid work world.
Well, I like your I've been following your guys' content for a long time, and I think there was an article that you guys put out yesterday on social media, and it was really interesting to think about, like, we think in the real estate space, in the workplace strategy space, we've always thinking about, like, what is the purpose for people to come back? Like, if there's nothing there that's drawing people to do that, like, and creating that environment, and if you have that duality to do it that way, I mean, it's incredible.
So let's talk about what we're doing there. And I think it's a great metaphor, honestly, for the future of work. Obviously, you've been through the building here. It is 5 floors, so it's not a football field.
Right.
You're broken up on different floors, which at the time I thought was problematic, but now is genius. The reason being, when you're going to be in the office half time, you are going to have moments where it looks empty.
Right.
And no one really, people like the library feel sometimes, but there's more energy around the space when it's full.
Yeah.
And the byproduct of having smaller floors, our floors are triangles, so they're kind of weird shapes, is that even when it's half full, it looks full.
Right.
Because the eye line that you look down is less ordered.
Right.
And it's kind of, you're looking across a diagonal. It looks more full than it is.
Yeah.
And we really like it. The last couple of months, it's been nice because the office doesn't feel empty.
Yeah. It's having a small dance floor, right? It's having a small dance floor and getting everybody on the dance floor. Like that's, like you could have the same amount of people, but you have it's like a small restaurant. It's like, it just like this feel where, to me, I think that intimate feel is part of that culture building versus going into a floor that's got 20,000 feet and you can see everything. And there's 2 people, it's just cavernous.
This is 20,000 feet.
Yeah, no,
across 5 floors.
That's my point, right?
Yeah,
like, and
exactly.
if you spread it, like, it's an interesting.
It's gonna look empty.
Yeah,
and I know people are struggling with this, and CEOs especially. Like, okay, what's the workplace of the future look like? Our vision, you said it with your reference to a restaurant. Our vision that it takes the shape much more of hospitality.
Yeah, totally.
Where this has to be a destination. And
right.
the examples I give, I'm watching the WeWork show, which is good.
Are they faking it till they make it?
I actually like the Dropout better, which is just because I think the acting is spectacular with Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah.
And it's not the same moral equivalence.
Yeah.
I know it's
yeah.
kind of
but still these
subject here. But we were actually had a lot of things right. And I think they're set up pretty nicely for post-pandemic work, to be honest with you, my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But the environment that we build here has to feel like a destination. It has to feel like a high-end hotel library.
Right.
Sorry. It has to feel like a high-end hotel lobby. It has to feel like the coolest coffee shop in town.
Right.
It has to feel like
people want to
restaurant.
come. Yeah,
And if you're not going to be in the office on a prescribed days of the week, and you're going to be here for certain meetings,
right.
more collaborative environments where you can be creative, you can kind of work together. If you're going to be here for those moments, then you have to plan it in a way that makes it feel like a place you want to come for those moments.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I'm excited just to watch you guys continue to grow. I mean, from where you were starting in early COVID to where you are now is just incredible. And I think, kudos to you and your whole team for building that. It's awesome to watch and being in Portland and seeing you guys do that. It's and being on the list for tech awards and everything else that you guys are doing. Just big ups to you guys for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it takes a village. I mean, this is about creating an environment. I want our employees to look back on I obviously don't want them to leave, but I want them to look back on their time at Brandlive and to think that was the best place they've ever worked.
Yeah.
And if we do that well, then we'll be wildly successful.
Yeah.
Happy employees, people who feel like they're committed to something, are more creative. We know this.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
A diversity of thought creates a lot more creativity as well. Yeah. And so we're excited about the future.
Yeah.
I think that the larger thesis of how people work plays very much into what we're building.
What you're building. Yeah. All right. So if you had a chance to have coffee or cocktail or Spanish coffee or whatever it is you drink, maybe it's water, I don't know. But
oh man, my wife's gonna kill me. No,
who would that be?
Okay, so I started growing my hair out, and in the style of Timothée Chalamet, and for whatever reason, Sarah really likes him. I don't blame her. He seems like a very interesting person. I would really love to be friends with him. So I'll go with Timothée Chalamet.
Okay. Are you going to are you going to continue to grow it out? What's going to be the situation
I'm going to
here?
try, though summer is calling, and I'm not sure I'm going to succeed. But yeah, I've tried to, you can't see it here, but I've tried to grow it out a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a different approach. I had the same haircut for 10 years. I'm trying to switch it up a little bit.
Well, good for you, man.
But yeah, he seems pretty interesting.
Okay. All right. That's a new one. So that's great.
There you go. That's
awesome,
man. That's my answer.
Thanks. Yeah. So where can people find you? And then where can people find Brandlive?
Brandlive.com.
Okay.
We are of course on Mississippi Avenue, just south of Fremont.
Yeah.
Across from Ecliptic's parking lot, if you know the Ecliptic Brewery.
Yeah.
And
What about you? Where can people find you? Do you want people to find you?
I live in Irvington. I'm generally here 5 days a week. If they come to the office, they'll find me.
They'll find
I'll
you.
be here.
Awesome.